want to ask you a very blunt and direct question because we've talked about this here. We've talked about this on other podcasts as well. How is it possible to have a true working class rooted black politics in America if there is not an internal class warfare or conflict or challenge put to the black political class by the black proletarian and lumpen proletarian for their sheer unwillingness and utility to the power of empire and being an obstacle to black liberation? How can we truly have any kind of truth in the freeing of black people from this condition if we do not suggest, support, and advocate for that black warfare? And the reason I bring this to you, and this is why I appreciate you, is this is where we disagree, because I know you are a believer in the black unified community or the beloved community that comes out of the Garrett Convention in '72, and you speak in those terms. And I understand those terms. I am not as much an adherent of those terms because I believe that politics is what gave birth to the black political class. Oh, my brother, my sister, until you get that job working at Bank of America as a, as an advocate for their policies, gentrifying Newark, New Jersey. And that's why, as much as I appreciate your camaraderie, your camaraderie on a racial level, I find it problematic because you know how serpentine most of these Negroes are.
Yeah. No, then you're absolutely right about that. And I appreciate these powerful questions, though, brother. Let me just say that this is no ordinary conversation and dialogue. I can tell you that. But no, first you start off with the fact that in the capitalist society, in the capitalist world, class struggle is real. And that cuts across skin pigmentation, cuts across gender, sexual orientation, cuts across national boundaries. Class struggle is real. We go back to Gary in 1972, we were just emerging out of a moment where we tried to break the back of American apartheid centered in the South and the forms of Jim Crow Jr. and Jane Crow Jr. in the North. So you still had segregation in the North. You had outright apartheid in the South. So you're going to have a very, very strong black consciousness. And I identify with that black consciousness. I come out of a black church. I come out of a black musical tradition. Mom and dad and everybody who shaped me and loved me and sacrificed for me were beautiful black people. But the class struggle is still real. Now, out of Gary, we got black politicians, but we also got Amiri Baraka when he went through his black nationalist stage and then understood class struggle was real and had his more class-based analysis, but always sensitive to struggles against the legacies of white supremacy and so forth. So that Gary conference, was a heterogeneous gathering, right? You had a number of different forces, but the dominant forces was that of the black political class or the black political strata and the black bourgeoisie. You're absolutely right. And that's why we have to tell the truth about them. That's why, again, Brother Glenn and the other Black Agenda Report and others, but especially Brother Glenn, was so explicit about the Obama years, because Obama was a sign and a symbol, not simply an isolated individual, but a sign and symbol of the consolidation and the triumph of the black political strata within the American empire to do what? To protect Wall Street, to protect the militarism abroad, to continue dropping those drones on innocent people, to continue to be in unity with an apartheid-like Israel against Palestinians undergoing indescribable evil, to expand AFRICOM on the continent, to downplay the entree of the Haitians vis-a-vis the Europeans and or even Indians from India and so forth when we talk about immigration, you see. So that you ended up with the black faces in high places. That was a consequence of a class struggle in which you're absolutely right. The black politicians actually moved to the very top, but the structure remained the same. The empire remained the same. Wall Street domination remained the same. Mass incarceration continued to expand. Grotesque wealth inequality continued to kick in. And what happens? You get a Black Lives Matter movement under black president, black attorney general, black homeland security. All three, those are powerful positions in the U.S. empire. Not the most powerful, because the permanent government of any capital society is big business, big money. But those political offices, powerful ones, all of them black, but can't even begin to deliver on the basic needs of black, poor, and working people. Class struggle is real. Class conflict is real. So I'm actually agreeing with you in terms of the trajectory of Gary, but the dominant trajectory was one of the black middle class politicians moving into high places. But you had a number of radicals who began to bring critique to bear of that. Of course, and Adolph Reed, of course, has been quite consistent in his critique of this. Gerald Horne, you think of towering black leftist intellectuals as well, who've been very critical of this. Angela Davis, of course, saw it very, very early.
Well, I appreciate your candor. I mean, I'm glad you're willing to see the kind of the conflict I see with the ideology and the methodology of addressing those class divisions, while yet trying to reach out in solidarity with people who come from those class coteries as well. Because I feel that once you give them succor, they're going to start to suck the blood from you as you give them an opportunity.
Wow, yeah, that's real. But what I'm saying, does it make sense to you, though, brother?
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from, brother. I understand how the trajectory. I mean, as someone like yourself, I was merely a child in those years. I mean, you were an adult coming to young adulthood, seeing these things transpire in your own face in real time.
Exactly.
So, understanding the emotional sentiment of the time, there is such a thing as time and place when doing analysis. You can make the argument that what you read about a period of time and place 50 years later gives you a good precipice of what exactly was happening. But that's never going to replace the experience of being in that time and place and seeing things with your own eyes and understanding what motivated people's emotions in those spaces to see how they got caught up in what they did. And some people may have gotten caught up in a good idea. Some people may have got caught up in a bad idea. But the thing is, though, nonetheless, people got caught up.
And keep in mind, my brother, the context. One of the dominant forces of the context, alongside the co-optation and the incorporation of the black misleadership class, as Brother Glenn would put it, is repression. You see, we can never downplay the role of vicious repression, incarceration, and assassination that so many of our love warriors, Mumia right now still going, we get H. Rap Brown, Imam Al-Hamein in Arizona. We just wrote a pamphlet just a year or so ago trying to make his situation more visible. Or Asada Shakur. I mean, of course, if I was president, I would pardon all of them. But I would pardon Julian Assange. I would pardon Edward Snowden, because they're all political prisoners who tried to tell the truth, Leonard Peltier and so forth. But the level of repression and surveillance and being crushed, we shall never forget Bobby Hutton's death 2 days after Brother Martin's death, right? 17 years old, Oakland. I know Brother Jason say he's from Oakland. Bobby Hutton's right there, you see. Fred Hampton, we can go on and on and on. You see, that's real. And therefore, the FBI and the CIA and the others, man, these are some serious gangsters, man. I'm telling you, they're some serious thugs, man. They will crush you in a second. That's again why whatever fear is coming our way, if you don't have that deeper love that allows you to still invest some kind of trust and confidence in the capacity of the people to fight even after you're gone, so you can leave a legacy such that your spirit is at work in their bodies, hearts, minds, and souls, in their movements, not just in their personhoods, but in their movements, in their families, in their music. You see, musicians are the vanguard of the species, brother. That's all we had after 244 years of the most barbaric white supremacist slavery in the history of the world. It's against the law for us to learn how to read and write. It's against the law a law for us to get together and organize, against the law for us to worship God without white supervision. All we could do is what? Steal away at night, form a ring shout, hold hands and lift our voices and create those beautiful spiritual songs that will be sung until the end of time. That's part of our tradition. It's a distinctive tradition, and it produces the greatest tradition of the 20th century, which is the Black musical tradition. There's no other tradition in the barbaric 20th century that has been deeper in terms of creativity, deeper in terms of fortitude, deeper in terms of courage. And that's why it has penetrated every nook and cranny of the world, not just because it's part of the American cultural imperial apparatus, but when people hear the music, the blues and the jazz and the rhythm and blues and the hip hop and the ragtime and everything else. Me and Jason was talking about Rick James, black punk, well, whatever it is, we ain't got no categories for it. But something is coming out of the heart, minds, and souls of a hated people that has such deep love, coming out of the hearts and minds and souls of an unfree people that is so free. It's like the connection between I Have a Dream of Martin King and Zoom by the Commodores. Those are freedom dreams in the language of Robin Kelly. That's what it is. That's the anthem of the brothers I've taught in prison for 41 years. That's their song, Zoom. Why is Zoom? Freedom dreams. I'm trying to get some distance from all of this hatred and terror and give an idea of what life can be like when we're free, we respect each other, treat each other right, create a free society with its democratized institutions and structures. You see, that's, for me, the crucial thing to never, ever, ever forget.
No, I understand that. And as someone who has been a long time aficionado and appreciator of Black cultural production and music, I see the sentiment. But what has happened to me, as much as I've gotten deeper in my dialectical materialist of how empire and capital uses Black cultural production to further its own ends, further its own utility, and further the subjugation of Black people, I begin to ask, and I say this respectfully, and we can disagree, does essentializing Black people as cultural producers not validate them as something, quote unquote, exotic and different, that gives fodder to racialist connotations? It's like, oh, look at those Negroes. They make such wonderful music. In other words, when we do the things that we say about ourselves, like, it's our music that makes us so special. Well, how would we feel if David Duke started saying that? It was just their Negroes in their music that's so wonderful. I often think that sometimes when we essentialize ourselves in our cultural production, which is something that is always, you'll never hear white intellectuals chastising Black people for singing hymns of the greatness of their cultural production. You never will. Why? Because it fits into the panoply of stereotypes the Western world has about Black people. I mean, what was the old statement from the early 20th century? Black people are the females of the races. Why? Because they're so culturally and artistic, and they make these wonderful things. This is not to say that we should shy away from the cultural productivity that we have, but when we essentialize Blackness as a cultural producer, does that not serve the ends of those people who say, well, look, well, of course they can. They're Black. They play drums so wonderful. They've been doing it for hundreds of years.
No, that's very powerful, brother. And I hope that all of your wonderful listeners take in your insight and your wisdom.